put the bodies on display.
And what can we expect then from the Afghan capital later on today?
President Karzai is due to give a statement shortly. We've spoken to some of his officials who say that, of course, in their view, Osama bin Laden was an iconic figure and that was his importance. In their view, he had the blood of many Afghans on his hands. But they are cautioning that this does not mean an end to the violence in Afghanistan. The insurgency here is nationalist in character. There's a figure we hear sometimes from NATO and other international officials that 80% of the Taliban fight within walking distance of their homes. And I think that kind of struggle will continue irrespective of what has happened to the al-Qaeda leader. But there are others too who take their inspiration from al-Qaeda. And one of the questions that the Americans were most interested to know was the extent to which the Taliban were in a continued alliance with al-Qaeda, or whether if the Taliban were to return here in some form, that is to say there was some kind of political deal with the Afghan government, whether that would mean the return of al-Qaeda. And there were hopes among international officials and American officials here that in some sense the Taliban could be split off from al-Qaeda. We await, and we haven't had it yet, for some kind of reaction from the Taliban itself.
OK, thank you for that. Paul Wood, our correspondent, talking live there from the Afghan capital, Kabul, on the morning that we received the news of Osama bin Laden's death. And you're looking at the live scene outside the White House, where thousands, it looks like thousands anyway, of people have turned up pretty spontaneously to celebrate the announcement made by President Obama about half an hour ago that Osama bin Laden had been found and had been killed in a mansion outside of Islamabad, the Pakistan capital. Right, let's get a summary now of these amazing events that have been unfolding over the last hour. President Obama has announced that the American forces have killed the founder and leader of al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden. The news came in a dramatic late-night address to the American people, live from the White House. President Obama said a small team of Americans killed Osama bin Laden at a compound in Pakistan and took possession of his body. He said cooperation with Pakistani forces led the US to the hiding place of the world's most wanted man. The US has been trying to track him down since al-Qaeda came to the fore in the late 1990s, well before its September 11th attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon of 2001, in which around 3,000 people were killed. Hundreds of people have gathered outside the White House in Washington to celebrate the death of Osama bin Laden. The attacks of 9/11 traumatized the American people and led to the so-called War on Terror. Now, the BBC's Rachel Harvey reports on the life of Osama bin Laden.
One of the most recognisable faces of our age. Osama bin Laden inspired a generation of Islamic radicals. You wouldn't guess it from this early family snapshot. Relaxed, smiling, a typical teenager. No sign of what he would become. A Saudi national, Osama bin Laden became increasingly disenchanted with what he viewed as the greed of the ruling Saudi royal family. It was in Afghanistan that he found a cause, fighting with the Mujahideen to drive out Soviet forces. Ironic now to think that the Mujahideen was supported by the CIA. By now, bin Laden's opposition to America had already taken root. From his base in Afghanistan, Osama bin Laden developed a network, providing training and guidance for the foot soldiers who turned his jihadist ideology into action. Al-Qaeda. In 1998, Osama bin Laden gave this interview to the American network ABC.
We believe that the worst thieves in the world today and the worst terrorists are the Americans. Nothing could stop them except perhaps retaliation in kind. We don't have to differentiate between military or civilian. As far as we are concerned, they are all targets. And this is what the fatwa says.
He meant every word. Al-Qaeda was blamed for bomb attacks in East Africa and against a US warship in Yemen. But it was this that changed everything. 9/11. 3,000 people killed in a carefully planned and coordinated attack on American soil. Osama bin Laden officially became top of America's hit list.
I want justice. And there's an old poster out west, as I recall, that said, wanted, dead or alive.
The so-called War on Terror was born. The caves where Bin Laden was thought to be hiding were pounded relentlessly. But he survived. And from his hiding place, Osama Bin Laden still managed to communicate to the world via tapes sent to Arabic television stations. This from 2004, just before the US presidential election. American people, he says, my talk to you is about the best way to avoid another Manhattan, about the war and its causes. The underlying message was much simpler than that. A taunt to America and its coalition partners. I'm still here. And after 9/11, other attacks, inspired by Bin Laden's ideology, followed. Bali, Madrid and London. The war in Iraq now providing a new focus for the jihadist cause. Analysts caution that Osama bin Laden's demise does not signal the end of the war on terror. Around the world, Islamic extremist groups have spread, inspired by but not necessarily directly connected to Al-Qaeda. And that, perhaps, is Osama bin Laden's enduring legacy. Osama bin Laden may be dead, but his ideas are not. Rachel Harvey, BBC News.
We can go live now to Washington. We can talk to the BBC's Tom Burridge, who's been in the Bureau for the duration of the evening, as is in Washington right now. And Tom, this sequence of events basically started about 3 hours ago when we were alerted to the fact that President Obama was going to give a rather unusual live address to the American people.
That's right. For people just tuning in, wherever they are in the world, we got word of the fact that the president was going to make a statement about 2 hours ago, and then the leaks came out that the US had killed Osama bin Laden and had his body, and then the president made this incredible statement where we learnt a lot of detail about exactly what happened. An operation that's been going on for years and months, really, but over a few months ago, President Obama received some intelligence about the whereabouts of Osama bin Laden in Pakistan. Last week, he decided that the intelligence was great enough to act, and only today, or earlier yesterday, really, I suppose it is now, he decided that the military operation would go ahead. The United States said it took place in a place called Bildebergers, which we understand is about 150 kilometers north of Islamabad, and Osama bin Laden was killed in a military operation. The United States are keen to point out that it was careful for the lives of other citizens in the area, but we don't have confirmation that no one died in the attack.